Hello everyone and welcome to the all-new WP Rig version 3. My name is Rob Ruiz. I'm the main maintainer of this project, and I'm going to be showing you some of the new features that are in WP Rig version 3 and what makes it different. We have this blog post on our website that has an all-new theme on it built on version 3. You can find it at wprig.io, and if you just go to the news area, this will be one of the top blog posts you find in there, and let's run through it. So first things first, we've rebuilt the whole processing engine for all of the CSS and all of the JavaScript in WP Rig. So we're now no longer relying on Post CSS and instead relying on Lightning CSS. And instead of relying on Gulp Babel, we're relying on ESBuild to do all of our CSS and JavaScript processing. We're still relying on Gulp 5 for all of our image processing and task management. Next up, we have moved our linting and PHP-CS checks to more specific scripts. You're not forced to run the linting checks and the PHP-CS checks and everything while you're in dev mode or even when you build. We now have flags set up to run that functionality during those processes if you want to use them, but they are not the defaults. What this does is it speeds up the processing for the developer script dramatically because it doesn't have to check so much stuff all at once. So we've essentially decoupled all of that. And so now if you want to set up automated processes that do check for linting and coding standards, you can add the flag to your automated processes. We do want to talk about the new settings page. So we do have an all new way to add theme settings. That now gets us up to 2 different ways that you can add settings in WP Rig. One via the customizer if your theme wants to rely on the customizer still, and then the other that does not rely on the customizer. This would be ideal for situations where you're building a block-based theme for WordPress. If your theme is block-based, that means that it's not going to have access to the customizer, and so having a different settings page is ideal. And so we've actually created a React-based settings page that is super easy to extend with your own custom settings. It auto-saves those settings, and I'll show you those features in a little bit. The PHP version has been bumped to version 8, meaning WP Rig does not support anything 7 or lower any longer. All of the code in WP Rig has been modernized and updated to meet PHP 8 minimum requirements. And so we are doing things like type checking and such in the PHP code, which is not supported in lower versions of PHP. This improves the developer experience for advanced PHP developers, and it also allows the PHP just-in-time compiler to compile the PHP faster. So with type checking comes performance gains, and since WP Rig is performance focused, we wanted to make sure we had type checking in all of the code. All right, so there's lots of other features that were added to WP Rig that were not listed here. We'll touch on those in a bit, but for the sake of brevity, we're just going to get right into the code and just look at what's going on under the hood. What we have here is a default installation of WordPress that I've just added some content to, and we have WP Rig currently active. So we're not going to go through the process of installing WP Rig and getting it to build and all that stuff. So this is default WP Rig, and there's nothing special going on here. It's very, very plain Jane. The idea is for WP Rig to continue to be a blank canvas starter theme for theme developers. Here we are in a brand new instance in our local development environment. All right, so let's dive into the code. So here we are. We're over here in my editor of choice, which is PHP Storm. And we have our new WP Rig instance installed, and we have already run the rig init function to install all of our node modules and install all of our composer dependencies. There are not a ton of changes in terms of like how the component system works. There's still components, although we do have some new ones in here that I'll point out in a bit. You can still find all your CSS and JavaScript assets in the assets directory under CSS, source, and JavaScript and source. Although the CSS and JavaScript transpilation systems have been ripped out and rebuilt from the ground up, we did stick with the same naming conventions in terms of the files and folders and how they're all organized, and how in the source directory we've got the underscores in front of CSS files that get included by CSS. We still have custom properties. We still have the custom media queries. For the most part, these are all basically the same. Our main goal behind the JavaScript and CSS stuff was to keep what was already working for WP Rig, but just improve the transpiling engine so that it can do it much faster, which it does now do it 10 times faster. Now, you will notice in the JavaScript files, I said we didn't touch a lot of the JavaScript files, but that's not entirely true. So WP Rig, as of version 3, has made the decision to encourage developers to try to use TypeScript as much as possible as their scripting language of choice. Previous versions of WP Rig did not use TypeScript, could not transpile TypeScript. Now WP Rig version 3 can compile TypeScript, and so we have converted our global and our navigation JavaScript files to TypeScript files. It will transpile it perfectly as you would expect, and then of course you get all the benefits that TypeScript provides. I won't go through all those here. Maybe we'll touch on it in another video. Now you'll also see in here we have this admin directory. This admin directory, although it is not written in TypeScript, although we may end up converting this to TypeScript in the future, what you'll see in this admin directory is essentially your settings app. So the new settings framework, the React-based settings framework, is basically its own app, and the index file for that app can be found here. If you want to use the settings framework as is, and you want to be able to control the fields like their names and what their types are and all that stuff by simply using the JSON file, we do not recommend you alter the index.js or api.js. Leave these alone, and as long as you leave them alone, you can simply update this JSON file, and if your build is running and watching your files, it will real-time update the fields that are available in that settings page as you adjust this JSON file. For more experienced React developers, if you want to change how this app works so that it doesn't rely on this settings field.json file and instead add your own fancy components and just make it work entirely differently, you are more than welcome to do that. Just know that if you go that route, unless you're very careful about how you edit this page, you more than likely will blow away your ability to use the settings fields.json file to control all your settings fields. We've talked about the CSS. We've talked about the JavaScript. For the most part, they remain the same. There are some changes that come from Lightning CSS that you do inherit as a result of us switching over to Lightning CSS. I'm not going to go through all those features. Some of it includes CSS modules and some other things. Our image compression and processing is still in the assets folder. It is still being done by Gulp. You'll notice there are some new folders and also some folders that have been expanded upon a bit. So in our includes, we do have a few new components that come with WP Rig right out of the box. One of them is the fonts component. This fonts component is designed for all your fonts needs and your theme. This fonts logic was previously combined into the styles component. We decided to extract it out of the styles component so it's easier for theme developers to find, and so that it slims down the styles component and separates the concerns properly. So there you will find that new fonts component there. We did leave the easy customizer component in here for theme developers that want to rely on the customizer for their theme settings. If you decide to use just the customizer or just the new React theme settings page and not a combination of the both, I would recommend eliminating one or the other when you start working on your new theme, because they are redundant. You don't need both, technically. The theme settings, the React-based ones, those are now found in a new component called options. And this options component contains our logic for the setting and the settings page. The settings page is very simple. You can see it's just a div with an ID called WP Rig settings page. And then obviously this ID does get overridden with your theme's name during the bundle process. So keep in mind that the bundle process in WP Rig version 3 still goes through and white labels your entire code base the name of your theme, which is set in the config area. And so nothing has changed with the config. Yeah, whatever name you give your theme in here, it will go through and rewrite all of your code to use your theme's name instead of WP Rig. The next folder you'll notice that's new-ish is this node folder. The node folder will expand in the future. We will continue to add custom node scripts to WP Rig to automatically change WP Rig with a command instead of having to go edit a bunch of files. So in the future, you will see this directory expand as we add those. For now, the only thing that's in here is the editor support script. What this script does is it just automatically converts your WP Rig theme to a block-based theme. So it unlocks the WordPress full site editor, so you can just run a command like npm run editor support, and it will automatically convert WP Rig into a universal theme, if you want to call it that. By running this script, you'll end up with a universal theme, meaning you'll still have the customizer, the menu editor, all those things that don't exist in strictly block-based themes. If you want to make your theme a block-based theme, you can still do it with WP Rig. You'll just need to edit the files a little bit more to get it to that point if you're going to only rely on the block system for your theme. However, by default, out of the box, we wanted to keep WP Rig a universal theme. We wanted to make it easy for theme editors to unlock the site editor with their themes. We do now ship with WP CLI commands built into WP Rig right out of the box. To speed up your workflow as a theme developer a bit, the number of scripts will increase over time, and we'll create a page on wprig.io that lists all the different scripts and how to use them and what they do and so on and so forth. As of right now, we have this dev setup script, which installs and activates a bunch of you could consider this a curated list of plugins for theme development. It's basically all these right here. Oops, allow me to increase the font a little bit. So if you're familiar with all these plugins here, it will install and activate all of these plugins in your local environment with just one WordPress CLI command to make it easy for developers to get their development environment set up for theme development specifically. If you have any input in regards to what a good plugin should be, if you have opinions about our curated list of plugins, please feel free to reach out and contact us through wprig.io. This list is up for changes in future iterations of WP Rig as the community sees fit. All right, so now that we've looked at all the code changes, let's go ahead and shoot over back to the installation here, and I'll just give you a quick run through of what the new settings page looks like. In our admin area, you will see now there's something here that says WP Rig settings. This will get overridden to the name of your theme when you bundle, but while you're developing, it'll say WP Rig settings. when we go to this link, this essentially is our app that manages our settings for us. And so you'll see you can set up multiple tabs or pages, if you want to call them that. In here, you can have as many settings on each tab or page as you want. And then as we change the settings here, you will see that our settings get automatically saved as we go through and set the settings. So meaning if I turn something on or off, you'll notice after a couple of seconds, it'll say settings saved. So there is no button to click for update or save settings. They just get automatically saved as your users change stuff in here. And then we ship with some default fields and such. I'm not going to go through all the fields and different variables and how this all works. We'll do that in a separate video where we just talk about the theme settings. However, we do have a document that's already been published on wprig.io that lists out in detail how that all works and what the different fields are and so on and so forth. There's not a ton of field types supported yet by WP-Rig. This is another area of WP-Rig that will expand as time goes on. We will add more field types. But for now, you've got plenty to work with, which are select dropdowns, toggles, and then each of these text fields can be set to different types of text inputs. The only other thing people will probably want to see at this point in time is how fast the build is. That was our main reason for wanting to put out a version 3 and essentially like rewrite a large part of it from the ground up, was because we wanted to make the build time faster. So you'll notice here, if I just type npm run dev, that's the time right there. It's built already. So it's about a 1 to 2 second build time, depending on the speed of your computer. I'm running on a custom Windows PC right now, which is not quite as fast as like a Mac M series, at least from my tests. So on my home computer here on this custom PC, it takes about maybe 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds for the dev process to finish. But on like MacBook M1, M2, M3, M4 machines, you'll notice probably a less than 1 second time to get the server up and running. The server does still use browser sync, and so browser sync will open if you have browser sync configured correctly, and the development experience is exactly what you would expect from WP-Rig. All right, everyone. Well, that's it for now for this quick update. Thanks, everyone.